Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to do a video about something kind of new in the market that's creating a lot of buzz, the Prophy lightsaber board. Now this saber right here I've reviewed before. This is the Boars Dragon Slayer from POC Store, and I've also talked about this blade. This one's specifically equipped with Neopixel. This time around I wanted to talk about the electronics, which is the Prophy board. Now let me go ahead and show you a picture of a Prophy board. There we go. We've got a USB card down here, a USB port right here, two little weird buttons, and that's a Prophy board. A ton of little holes or connectors around the outside, and you'll see that the vast majority of them aren't used. So let me talk a little bit about what a Prophy board is and why there's all this hype and interest in them right now. Generally speaking, with lightsabers, you get electronics on a lightsaber and you're tied into a specific brand. If the lightsaber electronics board that you have is from Plextor Labs, like a Crystal Shard or a Crystal Focus or a Nano Biscotte or something like that, you're pretty much tied into their features. When they come out with a new board, they release new features, they get you to upgrade your board or buy a new saber or whatever. If you get a NEC board, you're tied into those features and that functionality. And if they come out with a new board, again, you have to buy a new board. Ultra Sabers, Diamond, and Obsidian boards are much the same. They're all proprietary, and they're all hardwired to do what they do. The Prophy board is an open source board. Now, that's got some positives and some negatives that come with it, but I'll talk a little bit about what open source means. Basically, open source means the board is not locked into what it does. It's not proprietary. It's based on Arduino technology. I think I'm saying that all right, but it's... There's a whole group of people on the internet who buy these little computers that are kind of in a chip, and they program them to do any number of things. I've seen people use an Arduino board to create a MIDI player. I've seen people use them to create sound gloves for costumes, all manner of things. So it's sort of a board that's designed to have functionality, but what that functionality is depends on what you choose to use it for. And a Prophy board is designed with that technology. So what that means is that you have a lightsaber that is designed for you to be able to go in and tinker with it. Now, there are some pluses and some minuses to that. Let me start with the minuses, or the fallbacks of the Prophy board. The Prophy board is very complicated to learn how to use. The learning curve is very steep. With a standard board, they usually have instructions, you change the files, done. Or you load up a wizard, and the wizard changes the files, done. With the Prophy board, you have to install Arduino software, you have to override your computer's drivers for the lightsaber itself, you have to basically dig around on the internet, and I'll try to put a link in the description here to the page that shows you how to do all of this, but there's a ton of steps, and there's a few times during those steps when you run across a place. Well, I've been using computers for a while, and those of you who have found your way into your registry or places like that, you've had that experience at some point in your life where you've been at a spot in your computer and you say, you know, it seems to me like I have the potential right here to just completely screw everything up irreparably. And some of what you're dealing with a Prophy saber, some of what you deal with trying to get this thing programmed, feels like that. When you're overriding drivers, one of the videos that I saw was a tutorial and it said don't do this while distracted because if you choose the wrong device, you'll be overriding the drivers for some other piece of hardware on your computer and it's going to be a pain in the butt to ever get it back to working again. So lots of processes, lots of stuff you have to go through. Learning curve is very, very steep. And even when you do know how to do it and you get it all to the point where you can customize, the process for customizing is still pretty complicated. So you have to save your configuration files, load up Arduino because you can't just mess with those files, test your code. It's a complicated process. So the downside is the learning curve is very steep. The upside is that the Prophy board has the ability to do whatever you can figure out how to make it do. For instance, when they released these things originally, it had a default package, and that default package had I think like 4 or 5 fonts on it. It had some colors. It had a couple of effects. There was a strobe effect. There was a unstable effect. Rain wasn't in there. It was strobe, unstable, fire, rainbow, and a couple other things. But it had a set number of effects, and if you bought a saber that was pre-installed, that's pretty much what it came with. That was the default file. However, what it didn't have is it didn't have the ability to color cycle. So you had to switch between fonts, and each font was tied to a color. Somebody figured out how to create a color cycle so that you could switch the colors within a single font while the saber is turned on, like you could do on a crystal shard or a lot of plexter boards. So it didn't have a functionality. People wanted it to have a functionality. The community figured out how to get it to do that. They released the code, and if you're comfortable enough messing with it, you can get that code, drag it into your lightsaber, and have that function. So that's the wonder of an open source board. The other thing about a Prophy board is by being unrestricted, you can work with the creativity of other people. There are forums where people share their codes, and that's the nice thing about open source. So the downside is steep learning curve, difficult to work with, and lots of potential to screw things up. Upside, almost limitless possibilities once you can figure out how to work with it. So it's not user-friendly exactly, but it's capable of some pretty amazing things. Now, where we're seeing Prophy board most is with the realm of Neopixel. If you're using a tri-cree, and if you're not familiar with Neopixel, I did like a whole few videos about it, but a baselit saber or a standard saber has LEDs in the hilt, and it projects them up the blade. And with a Prophy board, you can get it to project any color up the blade. You can get it to flicker, you can get it to sort of fade in and out, etc. These are all things that you can do with other boards. You could get it to color switch, you could get it to cycle between the colors of the rainbow, and again, things you can do with other boards. Where Prophy really comes into its own is with Neopixel. And this is a Neopixel saber here. And you'll see, here I'll go ahead and turn this feature on. What we had there was an unstable rainbow flame blade. Now that's something that didn't come with the Prophy saber, but somebody figured out how to do it. I found the code on a forum. I dragged it into the saber, and it's an awesome effect. Other things that are on here, let's see.
It is not my time. I have found redemption. This is General Kenobi.
Here we go. This is one of the defaults. This is a rainbow cycle blade. This is a strobe light blade. This is something you could probably do with a baselit. Now, here we go. So, because this code can get fairly complicated, you can also set delays and animations and all kinds of things, and you're only limited by the stability of your code. So, for instance, this one is a Darth Treya font, or I've loaded it up with Darth Treya because I thought it was appropriate, but this is a font that's a corruption font. In the new canon, the Sith steal a lightsaber from a Jedi, corrupt the Kyber crystal with the dark side of the Force, and turn the saber red. This is a saber this is a saber style for a Neopixel blade that does that. And then when I fire it back up again, it stays red. Alright, so that's the interesting thing about Neopixel, is all the cool stuff that you can pull off with it. I've seen people set up the blade so that there's 3 sections of the blade and they all cycle. So you can set each of the 3 sections of the blade to be a different color, and you can set each one of the 3 sections of the blade to be flicker or rain or unstable or whatever, and you could cycle through them with the push of an aux button. The board also has the ability to change the way the buttons work. I've reviewed 2 Neopixel sabers, and one of them was set up so that it was a standard button configuration. You had to hold down the button, and then you let it go, and it would, like a momentary switch, and it would pop the saber on. This one is a quick tap. You set that up within the Prophy board. So you have the ability to do things like adjust volume, adjust brightness, and do all kinds of crazy style stuff with the Prophy board. So my general take on it is that for a Neopixel, this is definitely the way to go, because Neopixel blades are all about the funky stuff that you can do with them. Neopixel, in my mind, is garbage technology unless you're doing strange stuff with it, like flame rainbow blades, for instance. If you're just wanting it to do a solid blade color, you're I've done videos about this, and there's a lot of people who disagree with me. But for my money, if you're just dealing with a solid color, stick with a base lit, because you get a little bit more brightness out of a Neopixel, but it's not worth the trade-off. Where Neopixel comes to its own is doing the weird stuff. And Prophy is all about doing the weird stuff. That's what it's there for. That's why it is open source the way that it is. And another feature that's making these things extremely popular is Smooth Swing, which I've also done a little bit of video on. But Smooth Swing is another one of those places where the board had the potential to do something, somebody figured out how to make it happen, and Smooth Swing is actually something that's built into the default firmware or the default software on this thing. But Smooth Swing is basically, if you've got a standard lightsaber blade and you swing the blade, the hum sound cuts out and replaces it with that abrupt swing sound. Smooth Swing takes the sound of the swing and builds it into the hum and sort of keeps it going but ramps it up and down depending on the motion of the blade. So for instance,
Darth Vader.
Here we go. Oh, I've hit it, actually accidentally muted that. There we go. So we've got the hum here. This is actually a rain blade here, so we're flickering white in different places. It looks much cooler on camera than it does in real life, but so we've got the hum. Okay. As long as I keep the saber moving, the hum keeps going as opposed to resetting and then starting over again. The only time the hum dies down is when the blade slows down a little bit. So if I keep it moving, the hum just keeps going. Alright, so that's Smooth Swing. And Smooth Swing is a really cool feature that I think a lot of people have picked up because it does really make the lightsaber so much more functional and so much less annoying when it comes to a repetitive sound font. So Smooth Swing came out of this sort of Prophy community, and now you're going to be finding it on a lot of the new boards coming out that are sort of mimicking this technology. And that programmability that you find in a Prophy board doesn't just restrict itself to the colors and effects on the saber. It can restrict it, or it can be used to accomplish things like different flashes and different kind of locks or lockups. I don't have one programmed onto this, but I've seen somebody who's programmed a force lightning so that it's a localized flash on clash. When the blade is in blade lockup, like this part will start glowing white, and then it will move out and contract back, so it'll sort of move around like it's interacting with force lightning bolts or something like that. So all of the features of a lightsaber, the color, the effect, the frequency, duration, flashing, all of the other wonderful things that a lightsaber does with a Prophy, all of that is opened up to you, the user, to customize as you see fit if you can figure out how to do it. So if you are just wanting a saber out of the box, you don't intend to mess with it too much, you want general functionality, and you want it to be user-friendly, Prophy board is probably not the way to go. If you're looking for a saber that you can sit down with, sink yourself into, possibly get yourself in trouble figuring out how to work it, if you want it to be a pain in the butt and lead you to pull out some of your hair, then Prophy is the way to go. Prophy opens up doors to all kinds of weird stuff at the expense of some ease of use that you end up with other sabers. Now with the Crystal Shard, or the Crystal Focus X coming out, a lot of those things are going to be built in. But even these sabers like the Diadium 3 and the Crystal Focus X, they're still going to be tied to what they're designed to do. For instance, the Electrum Saber people, they can create a Rainbow Flame Blade. They can release that Rainbow Flame Blade to the people who have the saber. But you can't do it yourself. You have to wait for the developers to release the code. With a Prophy, you do it yourself. And that's a blessing and a curse. So hopefully this has been of use. If it has, please join me back for more videos and hopefully understand Prophy a little bit better. I'll see you next time.